Romans did, so did the Ottomans, Hunning and the Qing, Mayans and Ashanti kings. At least we're in good company. Ancient Gauls all down to the Gaul. All empires fall down to the last couple decades. Count them down. The states won't be around, can't be found. The strongest arm will fall with a bang. Lady of liberty with her fangs. Does that got you scared off it? We tend to fear what's there posted. Balkanized, so canal for a slice of the pie. American pie, all rise. Open mouth wide, take a bite from fight for your rights to fight for your life. Can't grow brain cause the soil fucked up. Bourgeoisie in the cut to bust nuts. If you recall, before they fall, it's all one hedonistic brawl. Make sure to take sips from the chalice. Little girls traffic, islands and malice. Concentration camp filled to the brim. Deport the workers, capital N. Out with the uterus, 6 scientific experiments. Modern day heroes and heroines. Terrorists up in Guantanamo Bay. But they hold the keys, all Trump K. All empires fall. All empires fall. All empires fall.
So that's Space Babies. I believe I played them on a previous stream, but that's setting the mood for tonight's stream. So I saw this stupid thing, very stupid thing that demonstrates a lack of the ABCs of Marxist, Leninist, Maoist political economy. Although, granted, this individual is not a Marxist, Leninist, Maoist. I think there's some type of weird Trotskyist, soft trot, social democrat or something, but either way, their politics are trash. But their claim is that there's no such thing as a labor aristocracy. It doesn't exist. So this individual is a labor aristocrat, hence him saying that his class doesn't exist. He wants to be seen as a member of the proletariat, but he is an AFSCME organizer. So, yeah. And he's been doubling down on his ridiculous position. And the funny thing is that I had Bad Empanada in the comments. He is a chronic reply guy. Honda is part of Bread and Roses, which is one of 2 Trotsky caucuses in DSA. Of course, there being Trots, there's going to be 2 of them. So they ask me, Bad Empanada asks me, why am I in this org with an individual that says things like, there's no such thing as a labor aristocracy? Well, I'll tell you, Bad Empanada, because there's really nothing else. Like, it's asinine, it's stupid, it's silly for communist organizers in the United States to continue to form little brownie-ass study groups and microsects and stuff like that. So, hold on. So, you all should be able to hear me better. Sorry, I had my microphone all screwy. Anyways, so yeah, fuck microsects, fuck study groups, all this bullshit, it doesn't work. Fuck democratic centralism that just ends up being hardcore centralism, which opens the door for abuse and all other sorts of nasty things. I'm happy in DSA. I'm glad that there are individuals like Honda Wang that we can mock. I'm glad that there are individuals like Kami Caucus and Mug and Red Star that are all in all pretty good comrades and I wouldn't mind building a party with them. So it got me thinking, like, is revolution possible in the United States when these are our communists? Granted, me being a hypersectarian Maoist, I don't consider Honda a communist at all, but do I know any books on the labor aristocracy? Yeah, try Settlers. That's what I tell every white person, read Settlers. To be honest, to be frank, I was calling for the overthrow of Maduro a week ago. I never called for the overthrow of Maduro. I said that if Maduro gets overthrown, it's going to be his own fault because he did this stupid thing. Oh yeah, he likes taking pictures with AOC. Anyways, it's not good to dump on your comrades even when they say stupid things. So, can there be a revolution, a communist revolution in the United States? Because fascists believe in waging revolutions too. So, let's go to the OG. Lenin wrote in Left-Wing Communism and Infantile Disorder that the fundamental law of revolution, which has been confirmed by all revolutions, and particularly by all 3 Russian revolutions in the 20th century, is as follows. It is not enough for revolution that the exploited and oppressed masses should understand the impossibility of living in the old way and demand changes. What is required for revolution is that the exploiter should not be able to live and rule in the old way. Only when the lower classes do not want the old way and when the upper classes cannot carry on in the old way can revolution win. This truth may be expressed in other words. Revolution is impossible without a nationwide crisis affecting both the exploited and the exploiters. It follows that revolution requires, firstly, a majority of the workers, or at least a majority of the class conscious, thinking, and politically active workers, should fully understand that revolution is necessary and be ready to sacrifice their lives for it. Secondly, that the ruling classes should be passing through a governmental crisis which would draw even the most backward masses into politics. A symptom of every real revolution is a rapid tenfold and even hundredfold increase in the number of representatives of the toiling and oppressed masses who have hitherto been apathetic, capable of waging the political struggle, weaken the government, and make it possible for the revolutionaries to overthrow it rapidly. Drake, what is your boomer ass doing on Twitch? We need to look to the RCP and New Synthesis for a real revolution. Just kidding. Drake is a long-term friend of mine, and I'm happy that he's here. Anyways, so this is Lenin laying it out. Like, this is what it's going to take for a revolution in an imperial core country. Matter of fact, in any country, you have to have people who realize that they're going to have to die for this shit. Revolution is not voted in. Honda Wang believes revolution is voted in, but Honda Wang is, unfortunately, a Trotskyite imbecile. You also have to have a situation in which the lower classes do not want the old way. Okay, we could say that many of our lower classes, the proletariat, the semi-proletariat, the lumpen proletariat, realize that stuff is fucked. But realizing that stuff is fucked is not enough for a revolution, because America and its football games and its video games and its television and its all of these little trinkets and treats that the ruling class throws out at us by virtue of us living in the imperial core, these are distractions. A lot of people oh, that's right. You were born the same year as me. I'm sorry, Drake. You always just give off a boomer vibe. Anyways, so all this shit, this helps to warp people's consciousness, and people are gonna be like, why the fuck should I go and die in a revolution, man? Look, I can fill my fridge up. I got a car. I got a job. May not pay shit, but I got a job. I can go and rack up at the polo outlet every few months or so. Like, imperialism keeps its workers content. So it's common sense that there cannot be a communist revolution. And I keep saying communist revolution because not every revolution is progressive, okay? Fascists believe in revolution too. And whatever deity exists or may not exist, may it help us in the event of a fascist revolution in the United States. So, a communist revolution requires all of these treats, these trinkets that keep people sated and happy. It requires that being ripped from under them. So it's going to require, for the collapse of the United States and a communist revolution and a socialist state to take the place of this shithole, it's going to require a global crisis, because America doesn't just rob workers that live here. It robs workers in Mexico. It robs workers in Saudi Arabia. It robs workers all over the world. The coltan that made this thing, this phone, it was mined by child slaves in the Congo. The lithium in all of these electric cars that people are gassing up comes from Bolivia. Okay? So you've got green imperialism. Now, one thing about imperialism, just like fascism, is that it is extremely fluid. It is extremely anti-dogmatic. What is the thesis? What is the ideology of imperialism? Making fucking money for those who matter. Who matters in imperialism? Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, people that have billions and billions of dollars. These are the great men of our era. And of course, women can play too. These are the great people of our era. Us, we're little peons. We don't matter. So for the little peons to seize power, it's going to require a crisis. And one of the key things that every communist should be doing is developing the ability to explain situations as they occur. Engels, in his 1883 letter to August Bebel, has a really good quote about the English labor aristocracy and their incapability for revolution. Yeah, he called the British the bourgeois proletariat. He would have called the Americans the same thing. So Jose Maria Sisson wrote, basically piggybacking off of Lenin. Like, this is a basic Leninist view. You cannot just in peacetime when everybody's happy, when everybody's sated. Well, when most of the people are sated, because it's undialectical to say that when everybody is something. Okay, you're always going to find one pissed off person, or shit, an entire strata of pissed off people. Anyways, Joma says, in either capitalist or semi-feudal society, armed revolution is justified and likely to succeed when objective conditions favor it and the subjective factors of the revolution are strong enough. Objective conditions refer to the situation of the ruling system. A political and economic crisis of that system can become so serious as to violently split the ruling class and prevent it from ruling in the old way. So, a violent split that does not entail Democrats and Republicans throwing down and fighting with each other, okay? Because fundamentally, where it matters, they're still the same fucking people. They're still the same fucking party. It's like the prosecutor and your defense attorney in court. Like, these people play golf and they hang out and they go drink with each other when they're not in the courtroom. But in the courtroom, they're adversaries. That's their job, to be adversaries. So the Democrats and Republicans give you the facade of being opposition parties, but in reality, they serve the same people. So when you have Democrat militias slugging it out with Republican militias, then you can say that there's a violent split, because contradictions have become antagonistic. When you got people shooting at each other, that's the very definition of an antagonistic contradiction. But for now, the main thing, like, you see how the Republicans, some so-called liberal Republicans or centrist Republicans, people like Mitt Romney, like, they're against Trump now because Trump embarrassed them and he rocked the boat a little too much. That's why they hate him. You got Chris Christie and all these other types of people that are positioning themselves to win a substantial chunk of the Republican electorate that opposes Trump, the Republican electorate rather. But still, Trump's people are hardcore partisans. So you got this Pew Research Center poll. 63% of Trump's supporters say that they don't give a fuck about reaching across the aisle and working with the Democrats, even if it means giving up some things the Republicans want. They want everything. DeSantis is at 47. Haley is at 28. So Trump's people, and Trump is going to be reelected. Like all these other people, they're just fucking also-rans. Trump is going to be elected, and he's going to mobilize these partisans. So that crisis that Joma and Lennon are talking about very well may be in the making. The ruling class engages in open terror against a wide range of people and is extremely isolated. So Trump has a mass base of support. Trump has millions of stupid-ass Americans, stupid-ass working-class white people, stupid-ass petty bourgeois white people who are willing to throw down for him, as we saw on January 6th. So he has a mass base. Does he have support in the government? Yeah, shit. A lot of people owe their jobs to him. People like MTG, Boebert, all of these people, like, they owe their jobs to Trump. Like, they rode his coattails into Congress. So he's got his own little wing in Congress. And what he's going to do is he's going to harden this more. Like, Trump is not a stupid man. Like, you don't get to become a billionaire by being stupid. He's brash, he's loud, he's ignorant, but he's not stupid. He has sort of a raw Mussolini type ability to tap into people's deepest emotions, deepest hatreds. Like, this guy literally started his political career that launched him into the White House by challenging whether or not Barack Obama was born on the territory of the United States. So he's a demagogue, and demagogues are extremely dangerous. And demagogues have the capacity to mobilize their reactionary base to engage in open terror against a wide range of people. The people in general, including those unorganized, are disgusted with the system and are desirous of changing it. The subjective factors of the revolution refer to the conscious and organized forces of the revolution. In the United States, we don't have any subjective factors. We've got a variety of study groups. We've got a variety of tiny little rape cliques like PSL. We've got the CPUSA, which should have been thrown in the garbage when my grandmother was a child. And we've got DSA, which has hundreds and thousands of people who are actually genuinely dedicated to organizing their communities. So I see DSA as actually building the base that we need to survive another Trump term. That's why I joined. These are the Revolutionary Party, which we do not have, the mass organizations, which we do not have. You have to have parties to have a mass organization. An armed contingent, which we do not have. We have a scattering of leftists with guns. We have Socialist Rifle Association. But in terms of like a nucleus of a people's army, we don't have that, and so on. To gauge his strength fully, one has to consider their ideological, political, and organized status and capabilities. The objective factors are primary over the subjective factors. The former arise ahead of the latter and serve as the basis for development of the revolutionary forces. The Communist Party cannot be accused of inventing or causing the political and economic crises of the bourgeois ruling system. So does this mean that we cannot take advantage of issues and splits and contradictions within the ruling class? Absolutely not. Our job is not to just sit out and do nothing. But we cannot impact stuff that's not there. We cannot organize the armed masses if there are no armed masses to organize in our area. We're going to end up with a tiny crew that's easily isolated and easily arrested. So instead of isolating the reactionary clique within the ruling class, we isolate ourselves and we get ourselves in trouble because of our inability to understand that the objective factors do not support the subjective factors that we desire. But we can still be building towards the creation of the three magic weapons. The three magic weapons are the Revolutionary Party, the mass organizations, and the armed wing, also known as the People's Army. We'll probably end up calling it the People's Militia or some Yankee bullshit like that. Anyways, we can continue to work and struggle towards the development of subjective factors, but we cannot launch them fully until the people themselves are ready. So our job is to use the mass line, take the most advanced masses and the ideas of these most advanced masses, master Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, and carry the ideas of the most advanced masses back to the proletariat, win over the intermediate, and win over the advanced strata of the backwards and isolate the most hopelessly backward. The most hopelessly backward, those are going to be your Hebrew Israelites or your fucking Trump supporters or people like that. In short, an armed revolution can only be justified and possible when objective conditions favor it. Serious political and economic crises and violent splits among the ruling classes who can no longer rule in the old way, while the broad masses are disgusted with the system and can no longer live in the old way. But the Proletarian Party must do its work well to develop the revolutionary forces by undertaking serious and long-term preparations even before the revolutionary situation sets in. So what would a crisis look like in the United States? Mass food shortages, like riots that last for months, like in Chile, Africa, Asia. Like you've got an intifada, like you've got October 7th happening here. That's a sign of a crisis. Okay, like your coworker complaining that they're a few dollars short on the rent. That's not a crisis. That's capitalism and imperialism working as expected. But when you have millions of people who are suffering those similar conditions, millions of people who cannot pay their rent, millions of people who refuse to pay their rent, aka cannot refuse to live in the old way, and when you have the ruling class just going completely mask off, because they're not mask off in the United States yet. Okay, a lot of people are still bewildered and bewitched by the apparent strength of the police, the apparent strength of the military. And they might have been in the military. They instinctively salute the flag. Okay, like that's how most Americans are. Most Americans do not hate this country. Most Americans do not hate imperialism. Most Americans don't even know what imperialism is. So there's political education work to do. Deep and thorough political education work. And there's major organizational work to be done before we can even claim to begin to be ready for a revolution. A crisis in the United States looks like the ruling class going completely mask off, like they're doing in Israel, like they're doing to the Palestinians, and just beating the fuck out of everybody, shooting people, live ammunition like they used to use at riots in the 60s. That's mask off. And it's no accident that the last great upsurge of revolutionary potential, organized revolutionary potential in the United States, was in the 60s and early 70s. Although I think that as we march on through this decade, I think we could say, we're going to be able to say, that the 2010s and early 2020s was sort of a mini upsurge. So you got this bourgeois asshole who has conditions for a successful revolution. It kind of echoes the Leninist thing. Mass frustration resulting in local uprisings. A large proportion of society's population becomes extremely discontented which leads to mass participation, protests, and rebellions against state authority. In technologically limited agricultural societies, the occurrence of rural peasant rebellion, or at least rural support for revolution, has often been essential. Dissident elites, groups that have access to wealth or power of various types or are highly educated and possess important technical and managerial skills, pit some elite members against the existing government. So you've got split within the ruling class. Powerful unifying motivations. The existence of powerful motivations for revolution that cut across major classes. Well, we're talking about a communist revolution, so it's a proletarian revolution, so we can ignore like this cross-class fasci bullshit and unify the majority of a society's population behind the goal of revolution. That's how the 3%ers are wrong. The 3%ers think that you only need 3% of a population to remove a tyrant or engage in an armed struggle. That's not going to work because your 3% is going to be massacred. Although 3% of America's 320-something million people is still a pretty substantial hunk, and they'll be able to create a large amount of chaos, but that's not enough to impose your will on the American people, because the American people are a group of people who kind of don't like having things imposed on them. They think communism is some type of like situation where everybody wears the same clothes, and if you fart wrong, you go to the gulag. Of course, the idiots with Stalin profile pictures on Twitter don't necessarily help disabuse them of that notion. Point 4, a severe crisis paralyzing state administrative and coercive powers. A state crisis occurs in a nation experiencing or about to experience the development of a revolutionary movement. The crisis, which may be caused by a catastrophic defeat in war, which is what Biden seems to be setting us up for if he keeps fucking with the Houthis, a natural disaster, an economic depression, or the withdrawal of critical economic or military support from other nations, if you're a nation that is under an imperialist's thumb. Or, by any combination of those factors, may deplete the state of loyal personnel, legitimacy in the eyes of the public, like no state can remain if it does not have legitimacy in the eyes of the people. The people are the state. Fundamentally, of course, we know that the state is basically once you strip all of the finery and all the flags and all the military pomp and circumstance away, it's basically an armed body for the control of one class by another. But if 300 million Americans don't want something, that's something that's not going to happen. Because if that 300 million wants something bad enough, then it's going to fucking storm places. And they're going to impose something. And once we see the finery of imperialism stripped away, and Americans can't buy fucking grapes in the middle of February because Mexico or Argentina or one of the other countries that grows grapes had a revolution, and they're no longer exploiting their people or allowing foreign companies to exploit their people, then we're going to see some shit. Americans like grapes. The state then becomes incapable of carrying out its normal functions and cannot cope effectively with an opposition revolutionary movement. And 5, a permissive or tolerant world context. The governments of other nations do not intervene effectively to prevent a revolutionary movement from developing and succeeding in a given nation. Nobody gives a shit what Honda thinks. Hondas are shit cars, and Honda is a shit person. And this is another interesting poll I saw. Fewer U.S. adults now assign Trump a lot of responsibility for the Capitol riot. So 57% of Republicans in January of 22. So this was a poll from last year. I wonder what it would look like now. 57% of Republicans, or people who lean Republicans, say that Trump had no responsibility for the Capitol riot. In January of 21, it was 46%. And 12% of Democrats say that Trump had no responsibility at all, and of the American public as a whole, 32% say that he had no responsibility for the Capitol riot. So shit is definitely polarizing, and we have to be in a position where we're able to take advantage of it, because that's the thing with leftists in the United States. We react to things like we are at the mercy of events. We cannot be at the mercy of events, because when the fascists get their guns out and we're at the mercy of events and we're still arguing over stupid shit like this, then we're going to be massacred. And I don't want to be massacred. I very much like having my handsome head attached to my handsome shoulders. So this is a contradiction within the ruling class.
We are back with a lot of breaking news right now at 4:30, and we'll...
So the Colorado Supreme Court used the 14th Amendment to kick Trump off the 2024 ballot.
Start with this. Former President Donald Trump now...
He just looks miserable and pathetic.
barred from being on the primary ballot next year in the GOP primary. The state Supreme Court making that ruling just a few moments ago. This comes back from a lawsuit filed by Citizens for...
He always wears the same fucking clothes, that same navy blue suit, that same white shirt, that same too long tie. Like, bro, you're a billionaire. You're a billionaire. Like, wear some tan, wear some gray, wear some navy pinstripe. Like, man, if I had $1 billion, I would be dressing. Like this fucking guy, he dresses like a used car salesman in Fargo, South Dakota, going to court for a DUI.
Responsibility and ethics in Washington.
Colorado is a Democratic state, but this is for the Republican primary. So I don't know if you're American or not, but basically the Democrats have a primary. Well, they've basically canceled most of them because they basically just like shooed in Biden for the nominee. And then the Republicans, they have a primary election. That's to see who is going to be their nominee in for the general election when they run against the Democrats. So the Republicans run against each other, and then the Republican primary voters pick a guy or a woman, and then this person is accepted as the nominee at their national convention, and then this person runs against the Democratic candidate, who in this case is going to be Joe Biden, because Joe Biden is not allowing any dissent. Yeah, he is a used car salesman. He's also a frozen steak salesman. He's also a snake oil salesman. He's also a shitty gilded real estate speculator. He's also a casino owner. He's a man of many hats. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen Donald Trump wear a hat.
Then that's a liberal.
Does his fake hair count as a hat?
Group. They filed the lawsuit on behalf of 6 Republicans and unaffiliated voters. What the high court did, it was what looks like appeared.
So yeah, that's a contradiction within the ruling class, and a lot of people are upset about this. I saw that moron Eddie Liger complaining that, what if there's a communist presidential candidate? It's never going to be a communist presidential candidate with any hope of winning, because the ruling class is not going to allow proletarian revolution to be voted in. That's why it's called a revolution, a violent overthrow of one class by another. Read your Marx, dum-dum. So, we live in an imperialist country. We live in a settler colonial country, much like South Africa. So let's go to my old uncle, Jay Sakai. I don't know his first name. Joseph, James, Jacob. Anyways, Jay Sakai talks about what happened with the so-called communist movement in South Africa. Like, did you know that the Comintern literally had to order the Communist Party of South Africa to admit black workers because they were doing shit like this? You had a great Rand revolt of 1922 where white miners who employed black people as literal slaves, like, can you imagine? Like, that's settler colonialism. You have the supposed proletariat employing workers as slaves. So who's the real proletariat? Who has nothing to lose? So you had the Rand Revolt of 22, in which an 8-week strike escalated into a general strike of all white workers, and then into a week of armed revolt with fighting between the Red Guards of white miners and the imperialist troops. The main slogan of this amazing explosion was, "For a white South Africa." You've got communists fighting for a white South Africa. The white communists marched through the streets with banners reading, "Workers of the world, fight and unite for a white South Africa." Workers of the world, fight and unite for a white America. The white miners, who were Boer, British, Scottish, and Welsh. Wait, didn't the Boers and the Brits and Scots and Welsh just get through fighting like 2 wars? Now they're on strike together? Gained the support not only of the other white workers, but of the whole Boer people as well. As the strike grew, the armed Red Guards of the miners started attacking African workers. Between the production halts and the attacks, thousands of Africans had to evacuate the Rand. So that's why it took a movement that was oriented around the democratic rights of the black workers of South Africa, who were the overwhelming majority, to free South Africa from apartheid. Is South Africa completely free? No. It's a comprador-run shithole that is still at the mercy of international capital. Anyways, because this is what communists are on. This is what white communists get on when you leave them to their own devices. They stage literal pogroms. You've got dudes with red armbands ordering people to unite and fight for a white South Africa, and then turning around and attacking their black class siblings. Well, would white workers, like racist white workers, labor aristocrats in South Africa, and African proletariats be considered class siblings? I wouldn't think so. You generally don't instinctively attack your class siblings. In recognition of the reactionary character of the revolt, all the leading African political orientations, churches, and unions denounced it. The main function of the Afrikaner masses was no longer to produce and support society, but only to serve as the social base for the occupation garrison that imperialism needed to hold down the colonial peoples. Indeed, today it is evident that South African mining, industry, and agriculture are all the products of colonial African labor alone. Afrikaner workers, far from supporting society, are themselves supported by the super exploitation of the oppressed nation of Africans. There is no longer, in any meaningful terms, any working class struggle within settler society there. Oh no, the Boers are still trash. The Boers are still trash. You hear me, Elon Musk? You are still trash. One would hope that they have become better and learned these lessons. They haven't. They're sitting around crying and complaining about how South Africa is going to piss. Or they're trying to... A bunch of Boers have actually migrated to Israel and are fighting in the IDF. I bet there's a stray 75-year-old former Rhodesian there too. But yeah, like when your working class is like this, the white workers believe that they had nothing in common with the blacks. The white miners earned 10 times as much as the blacks, that many of them employed black servants in their homes, that a victory of the black miners would have increased the desire of the mine owners to reduce the status of white miners, since any increase in black wages would have to be met either by a reduction in white wages or by a reduction of profit. Like, when you have people who think like that, you can't have a revolution in that country. Well, actually, you can, because South Africa was a black majority country, but like, America is a white majority country, okay? And granted, most American white workers don't have like Latino slaves working in their houses as maids and stuff like that, but a lot of the so-called petty bourgeois middle class does. And the settler proletariat, like, they still realize material benefits, the ability to go rack up at Polo, the ability to put cheap gas in your car, because America has Saudi Arabia as a fucking forward outpost in the Middle East and is still fucking around in Syria. Gaza has oil and gas too. That's part of why Israel is currently wrecking it, because they want that. So everything that Americans have for relatively cheap is secured at the point of a gun. It's secured through imperialism. So that helps to keep us happy. That helps to keep us satisfied. Like, the average American worker, like, yeah, they may pay out the fucking ass for their mortgage every month. They may be robbed by the landlord every month. They may suffer the bite of inflation. Why are y'all asking me random shit? Why are you asking me about fucking Siberia? Do I look Siberian to you? Do I look Siberian to you? I'm talking about America because America is what I know. However, if you want me to research Siberia, I can do that. I don't think all that much of Siberia. About Siberia, rather, because I don't know. It's just not something that that pulls me. But as long as white Americans, as long as Americans in general can live like we do, we're not gonna there's not gonna be any revolution here. Because like why? Why would you pick up a gun? Why would you pull your AR-15 out of the closet? Why would you pull your AR out of the closet and then go and then just go do what? For what? You got work in the morning. You got kids to pick up from daycare and school. You got to go to the grocery store. You got to go put gas in the car. So that's why everybody that's dealt with revolution says there has to be a crisis where none of that shit matters. Let's jump ahead a little bit. So people think that Sakai is a doomer. Sakai actually thinks that Euro-Americans have a role in the revolution. I know. People that like think that Sakai is like just a solid anti-white racist have never read him. Look at what he says here. Self-reliance in building mass institutions and movements of a specific national character under the leadership of the Communist Party are absolute necessities for the oppressed. Without these, there can be no national liberation because the goal of any American revolution would be national liberation first. After a revolution in the United States, a lot of people don't get this, but there will be no United States because the United States is a fundamentally counter-revolutionary entity. It's on stolen land. How can you have socialism on stolen land? This thesis is not anti-white or racialist or narrow nationalism. Rather, it is that advocates of oppressor nation hegemony, like Honda Wang, overall struggles of the masses that are promoting the narrowest of nationalisms, that of the U.S. settler nation. When we say that the principal characteristic of imperialism is parasitism, we are saying that the principal characteristic of settler trade unionism, aka Honda Wang, is parasitism, and that the principal characteristic of settler radicalism is parasitism. Every nation and people has its own contribution to make to the world revolution. This is true for all of us, and obviously for Euro-Americans as well. But this is another discussion, one that can only really take place in the context of breaking up the U.S. empire and ending the U.S. oppressor nation. If your goal is not the breakup of the U.S. empire and the ending of the U.S. oppressor nation, you are no communist. You are a settler radical. Don't be a settler radical. Settler radicals suck. So the reactionaries are preparing for a revolution as well. Well, more like a putsch, but they're infiltrating the military.
The military and the police have a far-right problem. Across North America and Europe, far-right extremists are actively recruiting both military personnel and law enforcement officers.
So why would a law enforcement officer or a military member become a far rightist? Because like these are fundamentally right-wing institutions. Like I saw some, like it's a joke that like the police and the military are social. No, they're not. Like you got all these hardcore ass fucking macho men who have walled themselves off from society. You've got the thin green, thin blue line bullshit. Like they see themselves as being apart from the rest of civilian society. They see us as weak people to be preyed on. So there's a lot of overlap between that type of thinking and Nazi, reactionary, fascist type thinking. Am I saying that the left should be going out trying to recruit cops? No, we have enough cops as it is. They just don't show their badges. Military is a bit different because like I'm not one of those 60s LARPers who thinks that all military people are baby killers. So if a military veteran is sincere, and we need these skills, okay, we should not let all of these skills go to our enemies. We need these skills and we need these people, but at the same time, we should not be right opportunists and admit people just because they were in the military, because that's how you end up with either a purely militaristic viewpoint, you end up becoming a paramilitary cult at best, and you end up infiltrated and all of your cadres end up in prison at worst. So there's a happy medium there. It's a bit hard to find, but like we should not wall ourselves off from any poor person that happened to have served a year and a half or 2 years in the United States military. Like that's just stupid. And you're helping to turn those people into fascists. That's just my 2 cents on that whole situation. Bannon Bonnata started it a year ago, and people are running around saying that BRG supports the troops. It's like, no, I'm a fucking pragmatist, and I want people who know what they're doing with the weapon so that they can teach other communists what to do with weapons. We need to stop being so fucking soft. That's something that I definitely agree with. But like, no, I do not support the imperialist machinations and desires of the American military. That's just ridiculous. But if there's one thing that the left is good at, it's arguing in bad faith, or not even arguing at all.
Germany, extremist groups have stashed explosives and thousands of rounds of ammunition. In the US, serving soldiers are beginning to fight against the very government they're sworn to serve.
We're in the fucking Capitol, bro!
This is how the far right are using troops with state-of-the-art training and high-grade weaponry to carry out violent attacks and spread their messages.
Our message to the patriots in Virginia is stand up, muster your people together.
This is Stuart Rhodes, founder of the Oath Keepers, an armed far-right militia
That guy's son actually follows me on Twitter.
militia known for showing up at protests around the US with heavy weaponry.
The St. Louis County Police were out last night saying that they were unnecessary and inflammatory.
That is the most inbred looking motherfucker I have ever seen in my life.
They claim to be entirely made up of both serving and former police and military personnel, and to provide protection for businesses during civil unrest.
We have an outstanding team. Brian Carruthers is a combat engineer veteran. Jose Rivera, he did civil affairs in the Army. We got Ivan, our Army Ranger veteran. Dave is a combat veteran, U.S. Army. Scott, retired cop.
Fuck you, Drake. And you're from Ohio. Well, Indiana. One of those fucking yeegy ass states. But yeah, Oath Keepers. Like, their logo here, that's basically a mashup of the well, wherever the fuck you're from, I don't care. That's like the Army Ranger symbol, if I recall correctly. So, paramilitary group. And am I saying that the left should run off to the woods and become paramilitaries? No. Our strength is in the masses. But like, if you don't take this type of training seriously at all, you're just setting yourself up to be massacred. Like, do you honestly think that your constant begging, writing petitions, just like they're doing with Gaza and Palestine, what the fuck does constantly bellowing ceasefire now do? Israel is not going to call a ceasefire until Gaza is completely destroyed. You're wasting your fucking time. The Houthis are the people who are actually bringing Israel to the table. Hamas, the PFLP, the PIJ, all of the armed resistance are the people who are actually bringing Israel to the table because they're stomping the shit out of them. You waving a banner around and going to a march and shouting ceasefire now or begging some fascist congressperson or senator to endorse a ceasefire, it's not doing shit but solving your own sorry-ass conscience. Get off of it. One thing I've been thinking about for so damn long is how the U.S. suburban development in the 50s was an early preventative move to try to stop the black liberation movement that the ruling class had been anticipating for a while. I definitely think that urban renewal, they called it Negro removal back then, like they demolished several high-density concentrations of black people and brown people and working-class white people and dispersed these populations. They tore down all the old projects and stuff like that because everybody knows that slums breed radicalism. So you tear down the slums. They did the same thing in Europe, by the way. You tear down the slums, you build highways through them, and you break up the working class. You fix it so that they don't see each other around the neighborhood every day, so that they can't talk about conditions at the factory that's 30 miles that way. And you fix it so that the working class is atomized from each other, and you forestalled a lot of potentially dangerous organizing in its cradle.
Also, so we
like global governance.
1 in 10 of those charged with storming
1 in 10 defendants from the U.S. Capitol insurrection have military ties. So if you're a dumbass and you, as a communist, full of piss and vinegar and hopped up on Gonzalo or Mao or Kaya, decided you want to go and try to pop off a revolution tomorrow, you're going to die because you're going to be fighting these people. We don't have any people like this of our own. Like the American left treats military veterans like shit. It either regards them with constant suspicion or it makes jokes about them. Like Bana Banata shared a photo of a homeless veteran in uniform begging, and he was like, "Oh, tough luck, bozo." Like, why would you do shit like that? That's inhumane for one. You don't know what that man did. You don't know what his story was. Like this whole theoretically pure excuse to be a dick. And who does that serve? Does that advance the cause of the socialist revolution? Do you even want a socialist revolution? Because I think he's a third worldist. I think he thinks that the fucking third world is just going to come overthrow the United States government for us. Typical white man wanting the third world to come and do our work for us. And then we'll all live happy and healthy under the red sun of Chairman Mao Zedong or some happy horse shit of that nature. So, can it be a revolution in the United States? Well, yeah. People like Honda Wang aren't going to participate in it. But these, you have conditions that have to be met. The ruling class cannot be able to live in the old way. The working class, the proletariat, the people who have nothing to lose, your migrant workers, your temp workers, your prison workers, they have to just throw up their hands and say, fuck it, I'm done with this. All power to the people. That has to happen. And they have to realize that they're probably going to die in the course of fighting for this. And there has to be a crisis. Like, you cannot fight a strong state. Even though America has like an image of being like weak and fat, when you poke the fucking eagle, it's going to poke your fucking eyes out. It still has a very sharp beak. This is what it means to despise the enemy tactically, but take him seriously strategically. Well, no, I think it's the other way around. I don't know. But despise the enemy strategically or take him seriously tactically. Anyways, what that means is that even though America looks weak, even though it looks like a paper tiger, it's still the most heavily armed country in the history of the world. And they have toys that you will never find out about until you're looking down the barrel of one, or until one of these sound cannon wagons has ruptured your eardrums, or until your eyes are leaking out of your head. So just be smart. Am I going to tell you to join DSA? Yes. Because, like, what is the alternative? Are you going to join PSL and march around in endless circles? Are you going to join some Maoist cult that's going to abuse the shit out of you and then kick you out in the middle of the night? No. I would advise you not to, but you're an adult. You can do whatever you want. Are you going to just hold your hand in your heads and hold your heads in your hands and cry? I hope not. That doesn't solve much. So why not join DSA? Like, we don't bite. They haven't bit me, at least. At least I haven't asked to be bitten. And you need to learn how to organize. Should you still keep your gun? Yes. I'm not saying you should get rid of your gun or your ammunition or whatever other tactical doodads you have. Keep those and teach your DSA comrades how to use them. But if we're going to see a revolution in the United States, we have to be able to, one, explain to the people why exactly we want a revolution in the first place, because revolutions are violent. Revolutions are chaotic. We have to explain to the people what socialism and communism are, because half of y'all I see on Twitter are saying that communism is basically I get to chuck everybody I dislike in a gulag. And as an individual who is a member of a group of people that suffer heavily from mass incarceration rates, I'm not fighting for a revolution to see my people thrown into prisons with red flags over them. You have to be able to involve yourself deeply in class struggle. I think that's part of what me and Honda can agree on, although Honda seems to think that organizing labor aristocrats gives him the right to say that the labor aristocracy doesn't exist. So when we talk about organizing workers, we're not talking about organizing people who make $70,000 and $85,000 a year. We're talking about organizing migrant workers. We're talking about organizing the proletariat, okay? Honda Wang's people are not the proletariat. Why? Because the proletariat does not dress like fucking this. Anyways, so there's a lot of work that we need to do. And that's pretty much it. So can there be a revolution in the United States? Yes, there can. But it's probably not going to come the way that we think it's going to come. It's going to be violent. It's going to be bloody. A lot of people are going to die. And it might not even happen in our lifetime. But, like Space said,
what do you miss? Golden M's? Cans of petroleum, coke from Ken's? Maybe it's asphalt friends. Maybe it's Benzos or Benz to make a dance. Maybe it's the front yard porch or fence. A torch is lit that meant no offense. A Porsche that can't go for a spin. Cause overproduction hauled them in. Talking gents, let the gin talk for the men. They lit the gas just to blow off steam. Loan sharks don't pause for the fin. To sink in, let that sink in. Exploit the masses, eggs in a million baskets. Filled by buttermilk berries. Paris embarrassed by lunch that damage. Squeeze like a kid learning on a half sandwich. A marriage, a bank at the wrench. Now the ice caps melt and the money's all drenched. All empires fall. All empires fall. History of class struggle. What word shall we write last? Empire goes to the past. Communism, a shadow is cast. How long will we allow to let legacies last? The working class, the gas with the last laugh. It'll get cooler with Mansa Musa. Stop the dream, wait for Constantine. Nobunaga pounded the rice, Hideyoshi baked the cake. Took Tokugawa said it tastes great. Unity is fame. Till it all separates. Till it all separates. Till it all separates. Woke up in the middle of a boat with a rope on my neck. Paddle, paddle, get the galley up and go. I was sold to some old men always by the coast for some gold. Put the olives in the bowl. Woke up in the middle of a road. Far gone with the days. The Sargon media controls. Babylon controls. King Cyrus falls. Ah shit, there Jesus go. Woke up in the middle of a coliseum. Both bowed low, said no, and spit the young toad. Used to own no land, tools and clothes. Seen a lot of Visigoths come and go. Thanks to Franks, but then ended Rome. Thanks to Clovis, I have a home. Woke up in the middle of a land I can't leave. 4 days under Lord's miles on 3. Rotate the crop, 2 plots, switch it up. 3 plots, not enough. Whoso fell in love? King's hat flew off we go. Earth that's slow, now we burn it cold.
I just had to chime in and like, is this motherfucker literally rapping the history of the development of feudalism and capitalism in Europe? This is nerd rap. Space is a nerd, but he's a very good nerd and you should follow him. Another thing of note, at least that I think, is that a revolution in a heavily decentralized country like the USA with 50 states would have its own unique challenges. I mean, that's common sense. Like, it's not going to be like, there's not a standardized plan for revolution across a country or across history. Like, yeah, the revolution is going to look a lot different than Michigan than it's going to look in Montana. Like, the comparison that I always make is that the American Revolution is going to look a lot like a cross between Syria, Gaza, and Northern Ireland or Ulster. You're going to have no-go zones. You're going to have entire neighborhoods, entire cities that are turned to rubble by either fascists or the dying embers of the ruling class. And you're going to have a variety of armed factions, maybe a third of which might be considered vaguely left, that are going to control like a patchwork of territory, just like in Syria. Like, people think that we're going to be the only armed force. Well, us in the reactionary state. Like, no, you're going to have various Nazi militias. You're going to have street gangs who may not want communists coming in, blowing up their spots. You're going to have various leftist groups. You're going to have cartels, especially if you're in Texas and New Mexico and California. You're going to have a variety of factors. You're going to have decommissioned, demobilized military and former cops that are basically setting themselves up as warlords and fiefdoms. Like, you're going to have all sorts of shit going down. So it would be arrogant and preposterous for me to be like, hey, this is what America is going to look like during, or never mind, after a revolution. But still something good to like think about. So whenever you hear what reactionaries are planning in regards to armed struggle, like, you need to think about, okay, how can I counteract this? Because they've already got bodies to our names. When was the last time a leftist killed somebody in this country? 1981. So realize where we are, realize where we need to be. You're going to have people like Honda organizing a white army. So instead of Toyotas for technicals, they're going to be using Hondas. Always been a funny man, Drake. But anyways, realize where we are, realize where we need to get.